Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast. This is your escape for real, unscripted conversations about sports, hobbies, life, and storytelling. No scripts, no forced takes, just Man Cave talk. Now, here's your host, Dan Casper.
It is Wednesday, so we kick off the third hour, the third quarter on this Wednesday, catching up with our good buddy, Ty from Slab Factory. Happy May.
Yeah.
Ty. Happy kind of summer. Not really feeling like
I
that
don't
right
know.
now. We had baseball the last 2 nights.
Yeah.
I mean, layers upon layers and stuff. So
if I have to keep bringing the plants back inside so that they don't freeze, then it's definitely not summer yet.
Right. So, hey, before I got to ask, because we had the boys in last week. How did the coup premiere go? Because they were saying that you were helping out and such.
Yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah.
What an exceptional documentary.
Yeah.
I know that now there's a way to stream it. I think like if you go to like firesideproductions.com, you still have to like pay for the rental, I think, but it, less so than like if you bought the DVD. You can buy the DVD.
Yep.
I got a couple in my car, but boy, what I was blown away. And I'm not like, I like documentaries, but I'm not like, I don't seek them out really. And boy, that was truly exceptional. Way to highlight the like Eau Claire community, the Coupe community. It was so cool. I was really blown away. They got really lucky with following some of the teams that they followed.
Yeah.
Some things just broke their way.
Yeah. Steve and BJ were awesome and such. And I found out, too, inside info, your wife also does a podcast.
She does.
Which they were telling me about, because I used to watch the show as a kid, too. And
yeah, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah, my wife actually has the DVDs of that.
Oh,
so
my gosh.
When he told me that, I'm like, oh, okay, I got to tell my wife about this now, too. So, yeah.
Well, make sure you guys listen. Sarah, so my wife, Sarah, she's like a comedic writer and like just kind of a really fun personality on a podcast. I'm biased, obviously, but I think it's really exceptional. And gosh, they like BJ and Sarah play off of each other so well, and yeah, it's really fun. So yeah, if you like Are You Afraid of the Dark, Nick at Night fans, from the 90s.
Oh yeah,
they are rewatching and talking about it, and it's so fun.
That's
Midnight Society Rejects podcast.
Yes, yeah. We usually she'll pop in the DVDs around fall, Halloween time and stuff like that.
That's
too.
Yeah, she needs to listen then because it's really all about like the fans. But I know people who listen just because they think that Sarah and BJ are entertaining too.
That's awesome. So yeah, definitely check it out. So it's also, since we are in May and such, it's garage sale season.
Yeah.
Right. And I know we had a surveyor, Sam, had texted last week saying, hey, heads up, this place has got cards and graded cards, garage sale and that sort of thing. And, you're seeing them pop up but it's the season for garage sales. And, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them might have sports cards, and stuff in there. So is there any tips or like how, because I know my kiddo just went to a garage sale and, they were already packs pre-made and such for a couple bucks and that. And he picked one up because it had Jackson Cheerio on the top and such, kind of a basic one over there too. But it probably just depends on maybe like the garage sale if they actually know what they got, sort of thing. But
I would wrap it up into like garage sale and estate sale. Sometimes estate sales have some pretty like big stuff sort of just waiting in the wings because people hold on to their big cards, until the end sometimes. But like when it comes to garage sales, I would say it's more common that you are looking at stuff. I mean, we're so well educated today compared to what we were when we were younger. I mean, if you would have walked garage sales when I was a kid in the late 90s, early 2000s, you'd see a lot of incredibly valuable Pokemon cards flying off into the night, at these garage sales, including my own, by the way. I specifically remember having my binder of Pokemon cards sitting next to like my friends who had a lemonade stand in our backyard facing the street and selling Pokemon cards alongside, the lemonade stand. And I'm sure I had some wonderful stuff that I'd love to have today. But anyway, so I think the treasures are probably a little bit more few and far between. But like the one you mentioned, like, for example, someone wrote in about one on the west side, neighborhood off of Platte. I've been to that one. I used to live over there, and it's got some good old baseball. And I'm not remembering for sure if there was a lot more, but like baseball for sure I remember. And I remember I picked up a pretty cool Barry Bonds rookie, and not worth a ton, but really cool. And I think that the guy there is pretty fairly priced. I'd say garage sales in general, be careful. Some people, I think I mentioned this last time, sometimes you walk into an antique shop or something and they have a $5 Jordan labeled for $200 because they don't know what they have. But,
right.
Always just, exercise caution. Ask your friends who know a thing or two about those sports cards if what you're paying is a legit number.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, one question I know I got something, but I want to go back to PSA grade because there was a conversation I was actually having with Hudson.
Yeah.
My 9-year-old. He's like, Dad, I want to get some PSA graded and such. And you guys talk about, at Slab Factory education and helping out kiddos and such. So if a kiddo would have or comes into your shop and such, said, I don't know if I'm phrasing this the right way. Is it worth it to grade this card?
Oh, that is. I get that question all the time. That's
a
great way to ask that question.
Okay.
Because the worth is really tied to the first question, why do you want it graded?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want it graded because you like it and you want to see it slabbed up, then the answer is always yes.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're asking me that question, it's probably because they want to get extra value out of it, right? So the question becomes, kind of what we talked about before. How sharp are the corners? How clean is the surface of scratches and dings? How centered is the card? But even if all of those answers are, this card is really clean, it also depends on what a PSA 10 even sells for. If a PSA 10 of a card sells for $35, you're not going to pay $30 to get it graded. So we help help you figure that out.
Right. Okay. So that's I'm like, oh man, I don't know if it's worth it or something. All right. So I'm just going to
bring it on,
you guys.
Yeah.
Yep. He's got a stack that I'm like, best way to just find quite a few of them instead of just one or two, right? Which we talked about before. So.
And our whole team knows how to help with that. Unless they're a new employee who's still learning some of the ropes, grading, we have, there's always someone in the building who knows enough about grading to tell you about the condition of the card. And then also who is able to check comps and say, when this is a PSA 10, it sells for $100. So maybe it's worth sending in.
Right. Did I see 2 Mondays extended
We're
hours?
Open Mondays now.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So
open on Mondays from 2 to 7. So
all right.
We're open every day of the week. There's no more people pulling on the door by accident on Mondays.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's always great to hear when you can expand hours to that too.
Yeah,
so.
The summer is great for, there's a chance that we go back to Mondays, closed during the, fall or winter. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But, we've been able to grow our staff and make sure that we have enough people in the building at all times. So, we might as well be open on Mondays and serve the customer base on Mondays as well.
Right, exactly. So one topic that you kind of brought up, checklists.
Yeah.
And such.
Yeah, so checklists. Let's talk about it. So when you, any of you listening, you open a box of, let's just say, Topps Chrome football. The megas are out right now maybe on shelves, probably not on shelves anymore. Probably all cleared out. But if you pick up a Topps Chrome mega and you pull a cool card, you're kind of thinking oh gosh, what, is this common? Is this rare? Is this worth something? Is it not? Before you jump to the sort of looking it up for comparable sale prices, because maybe there's not a lot out there yet, you can start looking at the checklist, and subsequently you can look at the odds, the pack odds from Topps. So if you look up any set and you just, for example, I'll do it with Bowman Chrome. I've got this Jalen Brunson. This is an insert where if you pulled it, you might think, whoa, this is cool. Is it rare or is it common? I don't know. This is a brand new set, Bowman basketball. You can just type in Bowman basketball checklist and then make sure you're pulling up the right year. And once that's pulled up, you can then see the checklist of the inserts, the players that are on autographs, the different types of parallels of those, right? And you can sort of come to the conclusion that this is a pretty common insert.
Okay.
Not worth a ton. Pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
So basically these are hobby shops. It's like Brunson's card shop. It's is the insert. The Big Apple Collectibles is what it says.
That is a cool looking card. Yeah.
So there's a lot of confusion sometimes of whether or not what you've opened is rare. If you then, if you want to take it a step further, you can go check out the pack odds. So maybe it says 1 in every 10 packs, there's one of these or something like that. That'll give you a decent idea of how rare it is. To use an example with a full sort of set of cards of what I mean when I say parallels, I'll kind of jump in a little bit more here. More Tyler yapping.
Hey, keep going, man. I'm learning here too. So
this is a Bowman Best baseball is a really cool, fun product. This is a base card of Jackson Churio, maybe worth 50 cents to $1, something like that. Base cards are obviously the most common. You'll see there's no reflective sheen to it. It's just a regular base card, whereas this is a refractor of the same card.
Okay.
So refractors, they'll have a shine to them. They'll be reflective. That would be sort of slightly more rare than a base card, still pretty common. From there, I'm jumping to Luis Pena here. Luis, because there's prospects in Bowman's Best, which is fun. This Luis Pena is a I believe it's called a wave refractor.
Okay.
And the wave refractor is once again slightly more rare than a regular refractor, but it's still not numbered.
Okay.
Still a normal, pretty normal common card. But when I jump to a couple of Jesus Made Bowman's Best numbered cards. So there's different colors for different numbers in every set, which is where the checklist comes in. You can check that checklist and see that this would be I believe it would be light blue parallel. And I can double check this when I go to the checklist, right? But the light blue parallel of Jesus Made in this set is numbered to 199. You can see the numbering down here where my finger is. It's going to be really hard for the audience to see, I'm sure.
I can see it right
you
there.
Can?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Good. So, and this one right here, which is the Mini Diamonds refractor, is numbered to 299.
Okay.
So there's different numbered amounts. So that means that's one of 299 of that specific card. This right here is what's called an insert. Inserts are...
That's a cool looking card.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah.
The inserts can be pretty common, just depending on whether or not they are a short print, a super short print, or they're highly, or they're common. And that comes down to, that check or that those pack odds. So when you see cards selling for more than you think they're worth and they're an insert like this, they're not a base card, they maybe got a cool design to them. Maybe it's a short print, maybe it's a super short print. Don't just trust that every eBay listing that says SP or SSP next to it is accurate, because people will put SSP next to anything. Okay. This is pretty common. I've seen plenty of listings of this card that say SP or SSP next to it. Don't just trust that outright.
It's interesting because I think, I'll use my kid as an example. He might open up a pack and get that card and think, oh, this has got to be worth a lot because it looks cool.
Right.
Right. Is that something that you kind of run into all the time?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people come in. I don't mind. We don't mind if you guys come in and say, hey, is this rare? Is this, because sometimes it is, you know, and something like this Made is not crazy common, but it's still not a short print. Probably, somewhere in between in those pack odds. Still worth, I think, $10, $20 or something like that. So it's not like something to shake a stick at. But there's also with inserts, it can also be that something is super short print, but then there's also a numbered version of it.
Okay.
Where it's even more rare. There's only 10 of it or only 5 of it. I brought in this Giannis Kaboom.
I saw you post that one. I was like, oh.
So a Kaboom is a super short print. It's really hard to pull this out of a pack. This comes out of Revolution Basketball from last year. And this is super short print, but you can also pull the gold Kabooms, or even, if you're lucky, the green Kaboom, which is the 1 of 1. Gold Kabooms are numbered to 10. These are the greens are 1 of 1. A perfect example is that in the new Bowman basketball that came out, They have super short print anime cards.
I think that's the one I saw with the television.
I was going to say,
yeah, that's the one I was.
This is an anime that's the black refractor numbered to 10. You can see where my finger is there. So like it's not only super short print, but it's also numbered to 10. Mm-hmm. So this is a pretty big card. This is the shops. It is available. Stop it. No, but
it is a sweet looking card.
Yeah, it is very cool. Yeah. I love the art on that. But
Yep.
the reason I feel like every time I do this, I'm throwing so much info out. The idea is for you to understand that the checklist is there to guide you through that. Mm-hmm. When you go to the checklist and you go to inserts, there will be one that says anime, and then it'll say there's the base one that's not numbered, and then it'll say there's a black one numbered to 10, red numbered to 5, and then the superfractor 1 of 1, right? I believe there might also be like gold to 50. I can't remember what the total checklist is off the top of my head, but that's what the checklist is there for. Mm-hmm. Beckett is the one who posts the best, most accurate checklists. Okay. And you'll see those when the set releases. They'll have that checklist out. And if you really want to dive deep, you can go look. All you have to do is look up Bowman best pack odds, and then you can pull up a spreadsheet that Topps has created.
Okay. See, to be honest, when you first started talking checklists, I kept thinking about when I was a kid opening up packs and those checklists. Do they still do those?
There are a couple products that still do that, but it's not common. Yeah. But yeah, back in the day, the checklist was physically on a card that you would receive in the set.
And you were so disappointed, like, oh God, I got that. And
I know it's so funny, but the checklists are. From back then, some of them sell all right if they've got the right player on the front or something like that, because sometimes it's like a Jordan or something that's a checklist card.
Right.
So sometimes but yeah, the checklist used to be something that you literally check off when you got a player.
Yep. So
that's where that term certainly came from.
I want to go back to something last time we talked, because you alerted it to me on Twitter and X about, the values, coming out right away and really kind of diminishing quick here too. And the example you used was a Josh Allen card. Out there
and
too.
that first sale, so it was a Josh Allen blue refractor auto out of the new Topps Chrome set for football. And that first one sold for $7,500, I believe, which you can get a really nice Josh Allen rookie auto for $7,500, right? So like the idea that his, 8th year, whatever, how many years he's been in the NFL, you can get his like 8th year, auto for that much. Like that's too high. So like that caught the eyes of collectors everywhere, right? Immediately when that sale popped up, everyone said, whoa, that's really inflated. So I sent you the most recent sale. What was it?
It was like 1,100. Yeah.
So it had most recently gone for 1,100, and I still think there's room to drop. So like that's kind of what we mean when I was talking about that last time. The hype of a new set. If you pull a really big card, that's a good time to sell it, because you might get one of those really inflated sales. But if you're going to hold it, don't expect it to hold that value of those first couple of sales that you see after the set releases. And same goes for if you're buying. Buying immediately after a set releases, pretty risky business.
With this might be just something I thought of at the top of my head, but with the NBA playoffs going on right now and such, I know you're a big basketball guy in that. Is playoff time, where we could see like an increase in value in some like star players cards, like whether it's a Wembanyama or maybe Anthony Edwards with that series? Is that a time where, is it almost like a stock market where it fluctuates depending on the performance of a player in the postseason? Does postseason stuff matter when it comes to that?
It definitely does. And you can get burned playing that game because, like, you can buy a nice Jason Tatum and then the Celtics get eliminated, by the Sixers in the first round of the playoffs. That's a very specific example of something that I did. I got a nice Jason Tatum rookie auto, and then they were eliminated. So I thought they were going to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I thought so too.
But anyway, so it's an interesting game to play. Where there's some like increase in the stars, but honestly, where you might see some really nice increases are maybe some of those like around the periphery type players. For example, Stephon Castle is putting together a really nice playoff so far. Obviously, they lost the first game against the Wolves, but his market is way up because Wembanyama is the center of attention. His market is already pretty darn high, so it's hard to bust through that even higher sometimes. Obviously, if he puts up 40, 15, and 10 with 6 blocks, his stuff's going to go up. But Stephon Castle has more room to grow. So something like that, you can certainly see that. Ayo Dosunmu the Wolves,
for the
right?
Wolves, yep.
After that 43-point game, everything went up, you know? So, like, it's, you know, those periphery players can be where the real value pops up. But, like, yes, all those star players, too, especially if it's like, you know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander already has the MVPs and the championship now. His stuff will go up, but not, like, crazy. Whereas if Wemby wins his first championship, then we're talking, like, some pretty crazy increases in value.
Okay. So is Caitlin Clark card still up there in value too? I know
they're always up there.
Yeah.
They're a little bit down right now because of the off season and also the way that last season went with all the injury. And then like the preseason's been like a slow burn for most of these WNBA teams.
Right.
So it's still a decent time to buy Caitlin Clark. I think that, you know, Caitlin Clark has one big game in the beginning of the season.
Right.
It's just going to go way back up and the hype's going to be right back to where it used to be.
Is there a big gap between her and like the rest of the WNBA in terms of card value?
Yeah, the closest would be Paige Beckers. People love new, you know, and she was great last year. I don't think that the new class is going to have a ton of, like, I don't think that anyone carries the weight of Caitlin or Paige in the new class. And when, you know, like Asia Wilson is more of like we're almost bored by her greatness. She's Tim Duncan, you know, she's
that's
like,
a great comp. Yeah.
like her market is good, but it's pretty consistent. It doesn't really change, even though she keeps stacking MVPs and championships. So like someone like an Asia Wilson, I think is a great buy long term because, you know, in the end, she might be the greatest ever, you know, and I think that, you know, I think if I had to take her, if I had to pick anybody in the WNBA right now to take, you know, be on my franchise, it's Asia Wilson over someone like Caitlin Clark or Paige Beckers.
Does like pop culture matter in terms of card value? Because if we're talking WNBA, you know, I think of like Sophie Cunningham. Yeah, you know, she's like all over, whether it's like for pop culture stuff. Does that value with or matter with card values too?
For sure. So like, you know, Sophie Cunningham is a pretty specific example of like this really like charismatic, fun, like, you know, woman who like does a podcast and like is really popular, right? And so her cards sell way better than her stats would indicate. Right.
Yeah.
Like that's, you know, like Sophie Cunningham's market is probably sort of similar. I mean, I might be wrong here, but it's probably sort of similar to like an Asia Wilson, certainly like at least way too close considering the talent gap.
Right.
So yes, pop culture certainly matters. I mean, there's like random guys in you know, throughout sports as well where like, you know, something happens like DeMar Hamlin, you know, like his market went crazy after he obviously like he died on the field and was brought back and like his market went crazy, right? Kind of weird thing, but like, you know, or like Pat Tillman's market is really exceptional because he is, you know, obviously considered a hero, right? And like, and a vet. And so like his market is always really incredible because, you know, people are you know, respecting his service. Right. So there's guys who, you know, there's players that if they are in that pop culture circle, it'll certainly help them.
Okay. And then like with events coming up too, with World Cup, you know, with soccer cards, does that, you know, become more of a bigger thing in terms of like need maybe for customers and people trying or collectors and such? Yeah,
the last couple of months soccer's been going way up, and that has a lot to do with the World Cup. Also, you know, coming into the end of the Premier League season and you know, I think it's so the World Cup is huge for that. You'll see guys who, you know, their national team probably doesn't stand much of a chance, but this is their first time on the stage for them because it's every 4 years, right? So like you know, I get my picks from my brother of like he's a soccer coach and he, you know, I get my sort of like, hey, who's the next like big guy coming up? And so like there's I'm gonna get his name wrong, but I believe his name's Arda Güler.
Okay.
I'm getting it wrong. He's Turkish, and it's going to be his first World Cup. Young player, rising star, and so like I picked up a couple of his cards because he's going to be on that stage, and you know I'd like to see what happens with those cards with a young player like that who's so good. So, you know, there's stuff like that where you know, soccer is when the World Cup is actually on the TV, you're going to see some pretty crazy sales.
That's what I was kind of wondering because, I mean, you're starting to see the build up for it, right? I mean, the jerseys and the shirts, and it's all coming out right now. And then, with the card market now too, I was kind of curious with a lot of these players.
We've never seen. I'm starting to call it. We've never seen a card market boom like the one we're in right now. And so, like, if I could make a recommendation to everybody listening, I do think that it is an awesome time to start looking at the football cards you want to target. Before a season starts is the best time to sell sometimes.
Okay.
So, like, that said, obviously there's if you would have sold your Drake May before the season last year, you'd be out some money because Drake May had such an incredible season, right? And it wasn't expected. But Jordan Love sold so high before last season. And even when he was playing well, his stuff came down a touch because it wasn't like MVP level good. Everyone's using their imaginations before the season starts.
Okay.
If you buy some football now and you sell it in August, you've got a good shot of selling at its peak or pretty close to it. So the pre-event, pre-season, that can be an awesome time to sell and probably not to buy.
With that too, or just something again that pops across my mind before I have to let you go here is do veteran? I say this like veterans, like an Aaron Rodgers, let's say.
Yeah.
His product, and if he does come back and such. Is that lesser value because he's been around the league and he's a veteran compared to maybe a Drake May, like you mentioned, or a Bo Nix or something like that? Does that matter in terms of the card market?
Yeah, you have to be one of the greatest of all time for that. Like, for example, I saw a gorgeous Steve Young auto the other day, and it was like $200, and I thought to myself, that feels so low for someone with Steve Young's resume.
Right.
He's not one of the greatest of all time. He's just a great. And some of these guys, some of these card markets, if you're not Tom Brady, if you're not, but even Joe Montana's market is less than I would expect it to be, right?
Right.
But so it's kind of like if you're not Jordan, if you're not Brady, whatever, buying the young guys and hoping that they go up is really why the market is so heavy on young guys.
Okay.
Right. And Aaron Rodgers, we now know who he is. So
right.
The new stuff that comes out, especially because he's in a Steelers uniform, it's just not going to be hot. Aaron Rodgers in a Jets or Steelers uniform is not a hot commodity. If it's early 2000s, mid 2000s Packers stuff, then yeah, for sure, because he's going to end up in the Hall of Fame and he's going to be one of the greatest we've ever seen, and that stuff still has room to grow, but not the vet stuff that comes out.
So it's kind of just maybe the younger crowd, if you will, kind of sort of thing. Is that more so for football or all across the leagues?
All across sports.
All across?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's guys across all sports where you'll be puzzled as to why their market isn't higher. It's just how it goes. There's hype around certain things. People will pay way more for a Jackson Dart autograph right now than they'll pay for a Joe Montana one. And that's
for me, that's like, wow, yeah.
No, it shivers down my spine.
Yeah.
So that's just the investing nature of it.
Gotcha.
Right. If you are a collector, purely a collector, you're going to pay more for that Joe Montana. No doubt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So last one here too, because with Trout having a good season now too, with home runs. I mean, is that kind of?
I have such a sad story about that.
Okay.
So Trout is one of those guys that is one of the GOATs, right? So with his struggles over the last couple of seasons, it's been like his stuff has kind of steadily declined a little bit. Obviously, it doesn't change his path to the Hall of Fame, right? One of our employees had a Mike Trout card that was graded, a PSA 10, a rookie card, worth a decent amount, right? And he was looking to move it. I decided I would, buy it from him and then try to flip it, and I told him the plan, and we talked about it, and I only made maybe a couple $100 off of it, right? It was nothing crazy, but he and I have been kind of keeping an eye on. That was before the season. So that card has, it's not nearly doubled, but it's like 1.5 to 1.7 times more than what we, basically both of us effectively sold it for. And we've just been like, I told him, I was like, stop sending me these. I don't want to look at these anymore. But it's just so funny, if you're doing it in terms of like buying, selling, flipping, you're gonna have plenty of those. You can't really look back. If you made a profit on it, or even if you didn't, like, it's gone. The card's in the hands of it went to a Mike Trout super collector who's going to hold on to it. I was really happy for him. Mm-hmm. He had one of them when he was younger, and he sold it so that his family could get a camper.
Okay,
and so now he has it back again, and I'm like happy for him. I'm happy that he got this card, because honestly, he'd probably be priced out of it if he tried to buy it now. So you can't really look back on that stuff. But yes, it can certainly affect it when, like, somebody who's that great.
Right.
Like if Aaron Rodgers had an MVP season, I mean, his stuff would go up.
Okay, yeah.
No doubt about it. Trout
Right.
just hit his 11th home run. He's crushing it.
Exactly. So, oh, man, we could keep going on and on,
Sure
man.
could.
It's been half hour already, just flying on by.
That's nuts.
Yeah,
you
right.
probably need a commercial break or something like that.
Yeah, we got to pay some bills. So, Ty, Slab Factory, again, opening on Mondays now,
Yep,
too.
open every day of the week. Just
Yep.
check our hours. And, if you guys, have questions for us on the checklist stuff that that I just talked about today, feel free to stop in at the shop, ask questions, or I'll probably even post kind of I'll post a little like a checklist tutorial on our Facebook page.
Awesome. Even better. So make sure you're following Slab Factory on Facebook and Eau Claire,
Awesome.
too. So, dude, appreciate it,
All right,
man.
thank you, Dan.
You got it.